I don't know that any introduction is necessary from my friend George Altamura. I think everybody in this building, everybody in this town has had a certain interaction with George over the years. When I first met George, I would refer to him as Mr. Altamura, and he refused that title. He said, call me George. He is that kind of a humble man. He's a great friend. He's done a lot of remarkable things in this community for us. And so when I approached George about maybe talking today with the Historical Society at our annual meeting, he said, well, let's do it at the Uptown. And we said, what a great idea, a visionary to kind of, as we're going to open this up again this summer, to kind of kick it off with a little preview, to have George tell us a little bit of his story, and that's what we plan on doing today. We have a few questions that we've determined ahead of time to get things rolling, and then we're going to let George just kind of keep on rolling. So, George, before I want to turn it over to you, I think our Congressman Mike Thompson is on the line and wants to say a few words for the audience. Congressman Thompson, are you with us?
I am, Mayor. Thank you very much. It's an honor to join you and to be there with George. I wish I was not on Zoom. I wish I was in person. That would mean would not be in DC. I would be there with you guys and with George, and that would be wonderful. Happy 73rd anniversary, and what an appropriate place to have this meeting in the gorgeous, newly renovated Uptown Theater. George did a fantastic job on that. George, I just want to say thank you for everything that you've done. Thank you for your friendship. You make me even more proud to be an Italian American. You've really set a high bar, and I want to start by thanking you for your military service. I don't know if everyone knows about that. Everyone clearly knows that you do a lot for our community, but you've served our country in uniform, and that's very, very much appreciated. And then you've never stopped serving. You have given back to the community nonstop. I think most recognized for your incredible Hands Across the Valley event, which has provided nutritious meals to so many people over the year. You've literally saved lives with that program, and that was you from day number one, from the ground up. As a matter of fact, I remember you had asked me to help on that first one you did at Don Giovanni's, now Don Giovanni's, and we made pizza with Johnny Miller and Steve Young and myself as the cooks. So I hope no one got sick from that meal. But we had a good time, and you've just kept that going and done so much for the food programs in Napa, and even purchased vans to make sure that the food could be delivered. And your work with Latino scholarships, Sheriff's Youth Activity League, once again, helping kids, helping people who need help the most. And then your incredible philanthropic work with the Queen of the Valley. You thrive on helping people, thrive on helping other people. And everyone should learn from what you do. We should all work to try and emulate what you do in our community. So George, I'm proud to join you today. Again, I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but you're a wonderful friend. You're a great community member, and I really love you, George. Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Thompson, and thank you for all the good work you do back in Washington for our county. George and I have a few things in common. We both love this community and we love history. And George and I, other than loving this town, we were both carpenters. I found out that that George and I were both carpenters as younger men. He said he wasn't the best carpenter on the job, but he knew how to get things done and he knew where his strengths were. And so We talk old stories every time we get together. We share stories and names and things that we've done. George he's got a 20-year head start on me, so his knowledge has that 20-year advanced start, but we do enjoy each other's company immensely in talking. And George, before I ask you the first question, is there any opening remarks you want to make to start things off?
Yeah, I just really would like to thank the Historical Society because without them, really, and I don't want to be corny, but what do we do about knowing our past? Our past is so important as we move on in life, equal opportunity. We're all going to die, but there's nothing left behind of what happened in Napa since the 1849s or things like that. So I thank God that we have things like the Napa Historical Society, because I'm proud to be here today to talk about Napa, growing in Napa and all that kind of stuff, because I've been asked a lot of times to speak before groups, and I've never have. I've always said, no, I just sat there. I'll get up there and brag a little bit, and I'll think of bragging instead of proud of what I am. And I said, I just got to drop that kind of stuff rather than get up, because some people think that I'm always thinking me, but I love my community. I love California. I love everybody here. I love everybody. I'll say one little thing before I get started. My whole life, I think, was probably an important part of my life was in the 7th grade, and I'll get into questions and answers. And I learned one thing in 7th grade, basically, and it's not 100% true, but I believe it, and I go from there. I believe the nun said something like, whether I'm right or wrong, about 45,000 years ago, there was 3,000 people on the earth. So with 3,000 people on the earth, and I believe that, and I've carried that through my whole life, that I have that belief, which a lot of my friends know, you're all my cousins. We're cousins. No, not a time to say we're all families, but I believe we're cousins. If there really were 3,000 people on the earth, we're cousins. And if a cousin comes to visit you from San Jose or someplace else, and he comes to your house and he's been a crappy cousin, and he's a doper, he's this and that, he's been in trouble with the law, he comes to your house and you're getting ready to have lunch, the first thing you would say to him, Johnny or whatever it is, come on, sit down and have lunch with us. You'd probably cut him the best piece of meat that you're going to have for lunch and everything else. The only reason why, because you forget all this and that, because he is your cousins. We're all without fallacies. We all got troubles. We have troubles here, troubles there, everything else. But if we stick together and know that everybody here, the one next to you is your cousin, and it's true. I mean, I go, whether you're white, black, brown, yellow, or Italian, I mean, they're all the same. We're all the same family. So consequently, I believe in it, and that's really my philosophy all the way through, because I don't believe there's any such thing as a self-made man. If I didn't have the Juans and the Albertos and the Narcisos and this guys and that guys, and I say this with all honesty, I'd be twiddling my thumbs. I was not a smart guy. I mean, I never had a book in my whole life. To this day, I have not read a book. So, I mean, I never was A. I never was a B. I mean, I was a C-type student. So I want to leave you with that thing, because whether you're gay, straight, lesbian, whatever you are, I really don't care. You're my cousin and I love you. I mean, I want people to know that, because of all the BS I come out with all the time, and deal and wheel deal, all the bull. I love people more than I love anything. I love more than buying a piece of property or doing anything. People are what it's all about. When I go, I want to be remembered a little bit that I love all my family and all my friends, and I love everybody. I love everybody here, no matter where you're at. I'm crazy about you, and I love you.
Thank you, George. That was from the heart, and we understand that. And you're absolutely right. You know, it's pretty simple in life. If we're kind and we're understanding and accepting, we can get a lot of things done. You know, I read that you hitchhiked to California at 17 years old on a hunch. It was probably a little more than a hunch, but aren't we lucky that you decided to hitchhike into Napa for us? Thank you so much. So on that, let's start a little bit about your upbringing in New York and then coming to California, George.
Okay. I was born in 1931, Buffalo, New York. a few more months, another 5-6 months, I'll be 90 years old. And I thank God that I'm very okay. I'm still standing. And we're real poor, very, very poor in Buffalo. But over the period of years, I've looked at that as a blessing because working with the Latinos, especially in Napa Valley, which have made me what I am basically, they're so important in my life because without them, I really couldn't operate. I mean, we got to think about that a little bit. And I always remember being poor. I remember never having milk because milk was 11 cents a quart. And bread, we used to wait in line, my sister and I, after school, Bond Bakery, and we wait in line for 5 cents a loaf of bread. And we lived like that, but it was a blessing that I was born that poor. My mother and I, before I was 5 years old, I had a little red wagon. I saw a picture of it the other day when I was looking for some pictures. And we'd get a half a bushel of apples by the Larkin building in Buffalo. Was a station there where people on welfare and stuff like that had to go. The only reason why I know I was under 5 years old, because 5 years old I went to school and stuff like that. So we used to get, everybody used to wear corduroy pants. The welfare used to hand them out shoes, high top shoes, a little bit high, and things like that. And we had rent to pay at the house, $13 a month. I lived on Eagle Street in Buffalo, New York, because I've got Ray Sercu here and Joe here. So they know where I'm at as far as where I was living. But my dad struggled to just pay things and get things going. 4 children. I'm the third of 4 children. My brother was the oldest, Frank. Frank was a saint. But all my families left me. But the bottom line is that $13. I remember when a man by the name of Odorico, I don't remember his first name, used to come, and he was an insurance man, and we used to have to pay him $2.50 this week, $3 next week, $3 next week. At the end of the month, we caught up to the $13, and we started again. So we were just plain poor. Never had the milk. We used to have cornflakes in the morning or whatever we had. My dad used to make a big thing of coffee. We'd mix with pet milk, carnation milk, 2 or 3 kinds of canned milk, mix it together and put it on our cornflakes in the morning. So it was honored, with all honesty, it sounds stupid, to be poor so you feel what people feel when they're trying to make a living. And you don't think in terms of, oh, I'm so smart, I'm this, I'm that, and I'm great, I'm that. You don't think of those things, honestly. It's hard to say that to people, but all my life has been like that because of that bringing up. I mean, you'll see as I go through the stories a little bit, to have milk later on was such a pleasure. And my mother used to give us an extra 10 cents once in a while that we'd get a little pastries in a package at Bond Bakery. And maybe once a week she'd say, here, buy this here. And we'd come home. My mom and dad were illiterates, basically, come from Italy when my mother was about 16 and my father was about 16 years old. The only one of the Altamura family that came was my dad. They come from Apulia, the heel of Italy. And my dad came, he was born in 1901. He came here in 1916. And he came on a boat with his dad, and his dad went right back. His dad sold olive oil and things like that, a few things like that. They go and try and make connections there. And then my grandfather went right back. But my father being 16, in them days, 16 was like when I left home. You were a little bit older in them days. You know, ladies were older and men were older. And so consequently, the dad went back, and the father, my dad, ended up in New York. He wanted to stay there. He met a couple of buddies from Italy, from his region that we knew. And he had settled up in Buffalo, New York. He ended up in Buffalo, could get a job and all that kind of stuff. So all at once, the boat that he came on from Italy to America went back to Italy, and on the way back, it got torpedoed. I have all the stuff from history stuff. I love history. I've got the pictures of the boat and everything else that my dad came on. It was torpedoed, so the war was getting ready to go on and things like that. So my dad never got to go back and see his mother and father. They never came here. We never went there. The war, we went through the big depression. I was born in 31. My sister was born in 29. My brother Frank was born in 24. So we had it pretty tough. And my sister Ann was born in 1934. So we had it tough. We lived 534 Eagle Street, like I told you, in a neighborhood, all Italians. And I used to listen to all the Italians holler, and I learned one thing good from all these Italian ladies on that block. I learned, and there's no disrespect to men, so I'm going to talk off the cuff a little bit, and don't take anything like that's gossip or anything else. It's my own feeling. It means nothing. That I realized that the women are about 6 times smarter than men. So the women are going to like that today. The men, yeah, right. The men are the Italian men, but it carried on all the way through. Your dad could be a PhD in something, and your mother might have just gone to high school. But your dad, or my dad, or all the other Italian men up and down the street, every other national too, woo, 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 bossy, 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 a little bit. And the one, oh, yes, honey, yes, honey, yes, honey, yes, dear, that kind of crap. But the bottom line is, she's got him by the ears like this. She's wagging him. So, you know, when you want something done when you were kids, it's always mama. And you watch a football game on TV, you watch a TV guy, probably a black guy gets off the field, he just made his touchdowns like this, he sits on a bench, he never says, hi, Dad. It's always, hi, Mom. Always. That cord is always there. And a lot of times people come to see me, and then I'll get back to the subject, for help with their finances and things like that. And the man will say, could I come in and spend an hour with you and go over some stuff with my family? And I always say, you're welcome to come, but you have to bring your wife. And they always say, oh, she's got nothing to do with finance. It's always the same story. But I say, you'll be surprised. If you go home and tell her the things I'm going to tell you, that maybe you got to sell your house or sell a couple of rentals you got or this or that and help you with going with your financing, she's going to say, you can listen to that. This is about 80 years old then. You can listen to that 80-year-old guy. He's half dead, and you can listen to him when he's going to tell you, we're going to sell a house. You're going crazy like him. So, but when a woman's there and she hears about the economics of life, I mean, she's cunning. Women are cunning people. And when she gets done, she should be the best friend for that guy to do something to elevate their family, which I'd be happy about, which I've helped a lot of people like that, with all honesty, because they've got natural, God gave them something that man can't have. Just a miracle of a child alone is something, they're so special. So I'm not blowing smoke for a woman, honest to God, but I've noticed that all my life. When all these Italians on the block, the men were always like, they were macho, they thought, but the woman always controlled them. And I just listened to all that stuff all the time, and listen to them talk Italian all the time. And when I was young, none of them talked English hardly. My family, my mom used to say, we always have to talk English. And I'm not saying to make my feel different. And my dad's the same way. My dad went to night school to become a carpenter, like I am. And consequently, they always, but no one ever talked Italian in my house. My mother and father, if they say something that you didn't want to hear, they might have talked it. But then I'll get back to a part that when I went to Italy for the first time in 1974, then I'll get back to the first story. Within a day or two, my brothers and sisters, nobody could speak Italian or anything else. I couldn't either. I didn't speak 2 words. But then, when I was in Italy, a day or two, I was with my mom and dad. I brought them in 74 to Italy, and I'll get back with that after again. But in a day or two, I started talking Italian, 90 miles an hour. That my dialect, the southern Italians were mostly the ones in Buffalo, New York. And so consequently, I'm saying, come sta Vincenzo oggi? Non bene, pretty good English. They say, che cosa c'è, or something. And they think to pull them out, malà della cava. And so I started saying that, and my mother said, where did you hear all this stuff? My mother cried a little bit in Italy when I brought them in 74. I never heard you speak Italian. So somehow or another, things are embedded in our mind, and things come out as we go along. You all remember certain things when you're young. I must have heard them 10 years old lower, and I never spoke any words. So God gives that ability to everybody to think and put stuff, our head is good and everything else like that. And I don't talk good. If I talk to a real Italian, and they don't understand Italian in Italy, they don't know what I'm talking about. So we talk Chinese or something, But I got that dialect from all those Vincenzos and the Carmelas and this up and down that block I lived on. They all talked Italian all the time, but we didn't want to talk Italian. And so we moved out of that neighborhood, not on purpose, at 10 years old. So we'll go from there. So I went to public schools in Buffalo, New York, public school 75. We lived at 534 Eagle Street, and nice house. I looked at it years later, and I said, how could somebody live in that house? It was kind of rickety, but it was our home, and God blessed my dad for being able to pay the $13 a month. So consequently, at school 75, I stayed there until I went to, we moved finally about the war started. A lot of people say the war started in 41, but in 1938, the Germans marched on Poland. And a lot of people think the war was a big surprise in 41 when the Japanese invaded Pearl Harbor. But reading magazines, I do read a lot of magazines. I read a lot of articles all the time. I read the newspapers cover to cover. But I just have never read a book in my life, and I can't read a book. Can't concentrate or whatever I can't do. So consequently, if I see something in a book, a page, a story, and I liked it, what someone said about life, then I memorize that page. But otherwise, as far as the book, I can't read. So the war in 38, as poor as we were, Roosevelt came in power in 32, about a year after I was born, and he made the country what it is. And he was a Democrat. I'm not Democrat. I'm not Republican. I'm not either one. I'm not conservative. I'm not liberal. I'm what I am. I'm declined to state or whatever the hell I am. Not to hide, but I vote probably 50-50, and I had like good parts and bad parts. I look at people like Mike Thompson, what he does, the heart he has to help people. If I feel, man, he probably could be communist or socialist, I don't know what to tell you, and I feel they're the ones going to help people to get better off and better off and better off. That's why I vote for. I don't care what anybody is. I always say they all eat out of the same trough. I shouldn't say that, but I do. I believe that, and I got to say it. So when Roosevelt came in 32, my dad finally got a job, probably 1936, 35, at the zoo in Buffalo. He's got a big zoo like San Diego. He's making benches and learning how to be a carpenter there, making cabinetry, working for people in our neighborhood, maybe making $5 to help make a cabinet for somebody, or just anything to make money to keep the family alive. And we were on welfare. But that was probably the first job, and we first started getting ahead. We ended up having a car after that, older car, maybe a 36 Chevy one time, but probably bought it in 38, and stuff like that. Every year we'd go on a vacation. As poor as we were, we'd get in the car and we'd drive to Brigantine Island, or by Coney Island in that area. We'd go to Washington, D.C. The next year we'd go to New York City for something at the World's Fair of 1939 in New York. We were there at 38 when the big sphere that they used with the big cone, we saw that being built and everything. And every year he'd bring us, as poor as we were. We used to load up with sandwiches in the car. In New York was a long ways, it's 380 miles, but with the girls sick all the time in the car, and the car sick, and with the old car, every year they took us to, and I love my mom and dad for that. Every year we went to a vacation. We stayed in Baltimore in a rooming house, one room like that, and we looked all the sights of Washington, D.C., and it gave me a base, basically, because I was growing up and being poor, and I got the good feeling, 36, 37, 38, and then 39. Then all at once the war came after that. My dad worked 2 jobs, 16 hours a day, always had overtime. My mother went to work at M. Weil clothing factory on High Street, not too far from our house. And she'd come home about 5 o'clock like that. My sister used to help with food, things like that. So we made enough money to buy a house, $4,800, and we were half and half with my mother's sister and her husband and cousins, which I loved them a lot. We grew up with them like brother and sister. They lived upstairs in a 3-bedroom flat, and we lived downstairs in a 3-bedroom flat. And we had another little cottage in the back. That was Bob Schroeder lived in the back. He was on Edna Place near the Civic Stadium. I only told that for Ray Circu, my friend, and the other people. So we lived there on Edna Place, and we went to public school 48 on Edna Place, also a couple blocks away. And I went there until 4th grade. And about 10 years old, when we moved to Edna Place, I went to that school. And then I used to play basketball every day at the Catholic school a couple blocks away. And somehow or another, I wanted to go. And my brother and sister couldn't go because we had no money still when I started grade school, 7th grade. We were still kind of poor. And we bought the house and everything, but we still didn't have a lot of money. So nobody would go to Catholic school, but my mother and father helped to put me in Catholic school for my 7th and 8th grade. And I enjoyed it a lot. Irish-German neighborhood that we moved into on Edna Place. And I don't hold anything against them. The Irish and German, they wouldn't let us Altamura's or no Italian. We were on the street with no Italians, none. We moved out of an Italian neighborhood, and there was still that prejudice. So that's why I maybe learned it helped me to not have prejudice against anybody or anything, because I could never go in their houses for 2 years about all, and I don't hold it against the Irish. I tell Connor that all the time. He's worked with me. And I don't beat up on anybody because it's the way it was. America was like that. The Irish got persecuted like crazy. The Germans, people hated the Germans. They moved into little things in Minnesota, here or there, things like that. So America, you almost have to earn your way into this mainstream of America. The Irish had it bad. Every nationality that come to the United States got beat up on. The Chinese, for some reason, are getting beat up a little bit now. The blacks have always gotten beat up all the time. And so consequently, in all different things of whatever you are, people always have an opinion of who you are and what you are. But you learn from that. You learn that, you don't want no more prejudice. You don't want this and that. And you respect the people like the Italians. I respected them that worked and hard to come into American mainstream. A lot of people always thought, well, they're the mafia. They're crooks. They used to go like this. And there was watch out for them. So it was always a question of Dagos. But I don't have any animosities against anybody for that, because everybody, it's equal opportunity there too, in a bad way. We all get beat up on until you finally enter the United States. I'm sorry, with all honesty, that the blacks has taken so many years because we could say they're my brothers, they're my cousins, they're this and that, but we all know, honest, deep, they're hurting. We don't have many in Napa because when I first came here, they hardly weren't wanted. And before I came here in 48, the first time, none of them were here, none. If they worked at the state hospital, they had to go live in Vallejo or Fairfield or someplace else. So all those things make you, hopefully, a man that has a compassion for people, because if you feel we are cousins, we are cousins. So I'll go from there. Then I went to, I wanted to go into St. Joe's Collegiate Institute. That's Ray Circu is here. And the best school in Buffalo as far as I was concerned. I couldn't afford it. We couldn't afford to go. I don't know how Ray got in, but he's from Belgium. Maybe they got a lot of money. So consequently, I wanted to go to that school bad, but we couldn't afford it. So the priest, I was an altar boy when I was about 12 years old when I was at St. Our Lady of Lourdes School. And I became an altar boy, and I loved being on the altar. It might sound corny to some people, but I always thought when I was on the altar, I was close to God. And I got my mind going as far as human beings and this and that, they're more, and I didn't have time to think of somebody who was bad. So consequently, I used to go to Mass all the time, altar boy in the mornings. We had a 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock mass. And the older boys, a lot of them were wealthy in that neighborhood a little bit. And so the 7 o'clock mass, nobody wanted it. And the priest used to put your name down on the list. And I used to get 25 cents for doing their 7 o'clock mass. And I'd done that so many times that the priest would see me all the time there. And so when it come time to go to St. Joe's, we didn't have the money. And St. Joe's is a school now. It's about 800 students. And it's like a college campus. And when they were on Main Street, about 3 blocks from my house, right a block or two from Our Lady of Lourdes Church, it was the school in Buffalo, New York. That and Canisius High School were these powerhouses in Buffalo, New York. You couldn't even get on the basketball team or football team. They were like power. They brought people in from all over. And they'd go play all over New York, all here. Everything was sports. But the Christian Brothers were my teachers there. That's who had St. Joe's Collegiate Institute, Christian Brothers. And so consequently, one of the priests from where I was at in the Lady of Lourdes, they went with me to the school to meet with the principals and everything else, and asked if they could somehow find a way to let me get into St. Joe's. Because as I said, we had no money. And so I never paid no tuition. And the first 2 years I worked in the cafeteria for my tuition. And I used to make, I didn't do a big job, but I had a tray. And I used to make hamburger patties, and they put them in the oven. And then it was always hamburgers, something easy, stuff like that. But I worked there for the first couple of years in the kitchen with for my tuition. We never paid nothing. About the third year, by the third year, we were in pretty good shape, and I was working all the time. My third year of high school, I started high school when I was 13 years old. And I got into school because I had a pretty good education in 7th and 8th grade. Even before that, I had a pretty good education. So getting into school like that, and when I was about 15 years old, by that time I was working in a grocery store on a corner from my house. And it sounds like I'm BSing, but the man was kind of a gambler, probably mafia. Frank Leoma and his wife, Mary, and her daughter, Rachel, they lived upstairs at this grocery store in the corner of Edna in Michigan. And I got a job there, 25 cents an hour. I probably was 14, 15. And my mother didn't like me going there because she said, oh, they robbed some night there. But I don't know, I was a little older for my age for some reason. And so consequently, I worked there, and that's where I discovered half and half. I never had milk, but they used to have half and half, the little pints. Every day I said, Frank, can I have one? And I said, drink it. It sounds corny, but to drink that pint of half and half was like heaven. I mean, it was like heaven. And then he'd leave the store the minute I got there because he's a big card player. And his wife, they never come down, and the daughter never. And we used to sell illegal cartons of cigarettes, $2.50 a carton. I used to sell like cigarettes all the time, sell the groceries a little bit. It wasn't like I had a meat or anything else, but I used to slice the cold because they had. It was a lightweight, but the stuff on the shelves, I sold it. And I took care of the money and everything else like that until I was about 15 years old. And that's how I made money to come to California when I'm 16, because I always worked. I had a strap across me with a box and ice cream in there, like you see sometimes Hispanics with the selling stuff. I was the same way. At the end of Main Street, I'd had that box with ice in there and stuff, and I'd go down the end of Main Street, 15, 16 years old. They call it Times Beach. And I'd go sell the ice cream, maybe a nickel or 10. I don't know what the hell we used to sell it for. But I made a few dollars here, a few dollars there. My brother and I had a gimmick when we were in the first house, when we were up until I was 10 years old. We used to go in the bars at nighttime. We sold a Saturday Evening Post and the Liberty magazine. And we had the story that we'd go into this there, and my brother stay outside and freeze, 7 years older. And I only went in with 5 or 6 magazines. And I, like a gimmick, and go in there, and I had to go, I got to sell the magazine if I can go home, and all the BS, you know. And they used to put me on top of the bar, swear to God, and I tap dance, okay? do anything to sell my magazines. And I probably sold the same magazine 3 times because they'd give me the nickel for the magazine. So, oh, that's okay. Well, and I go to another bar. There's a lot of bars in Buffalo. And I go to another bar to sell the same magazines over and over. And my brother outside freezing, because if he came in being 4, I was probably under 5, 6 years old, right around there. He'd say, how did your mother let you go out? We were poor. When you're poor, you're poor. You got to do whatever you got to do to make ends meet. And so I sold the magazines, and I swear to God, my brother used to get cameras. My brother got his bicycle, all kinds of stuff for selling the most magazines of that area, district. I used to sell magazines like crazy. And then I had my paper route, Buffalo Evening News, with another wagon, not the same wagon I had when I was young. And I sold the magazines right at the Buffalo Evening News, afternoon newspaper. And I'd go house to house. I had all the houses around there, and people used to buy newspapers then. So between the Saturday Evening Post and there, I made a little money and working for Frank Leoma, and he was good to me. Every once in a while, he'd give me $1, like a tip, besides the 25 cents an hour I used to get. And I never studied too much. I was never a very good student, to tell you the truth. And you say, well, how come? I worked till 7:30 every day after school. And then Saturdays, a lot of times I used to clean out a Sunoco gas station on the corner. And Al Ice, E-I-S-S, whatever nationality he was, when I was about 13, 14, I used to sweep on a Saturday, and maybe he'd give me $1, 4 hours of cleaning, putting all the stuff away in the gas, where the cars go up and down lifts in the back. He was a good person, always nice. The people on my block, once they got to know us, that we weren't bad people, I'd get in their houses then. On that block with the Irish and German people, it probably took 2 years before we get in that block. The man next door, Mr. Martian, when we'd walk to school in the morning on the sidewalk, he'd stand there just like this. I can see him right now, so we don't step on his grass. So, I mean, that's the way it was. And my mother said, George, we got to be good. George, I was probably a little wild anyways. We got to be good. You got to show these people that, that we're good people. My mother used to cry a little once in a while when somebody treated us bad a little bit. And but not as bad as a Chinese person that used to come down that street sometime. Some people used to throw a piece of dirt at that guy. And I used to try and listen at there. I swear to God, I used to tell them, what are we doing that for? What are you doing? And that kind of stuff. But there's only one Chinese guy around. I don't know, whenever he comes to do something up that block or something, goes someplace else, maybe helping some people or something, I don't know what. They go, get out of here, and stuff like that, like just bad. And there was a lot of prejudices in the old days. A lot of people, if you were German, you thought you were the master race, even if you're in America. If you were somebody else, they always hung in niches. You go to a Polish neighborhood, all the Polish. You went to Detroit and places like that, you see whatever the nationality was to groups. Like now, there are a lot of Arabian-type people from the Middle East in Detroit and above Detroit. It's a big Arab-type thing. People always went to, you can understand why. The Italians always were on the west side, a little bit on the east side, because they bundled together. And then, and they used to help each other until some of them got rich, or richer, we'll put it that way, and then they became different Italians. That's human nature. Once they get rich, they get like that a little bit. So I always was trying to be careful of that, because I just call them, I shouldn't do this, but I say white Italians, because they'd go to live on Angola, Lake Angola, Angola on the lake, Lake Erie, and things like that. And they always tell you about their summer home they got over there, and it is all a BS. In my school was a lot of wealthy type people. My school was mostly Catholics, but there were Protestants in the school, because the Christian brothers were not holier than thou type people. They weren't priests. They're the ones like at Justin High School here. And they weren't holier than thou. So Jewish kids were in my school. That stores, a lot of stores downtown were Jewish, and a lot of Jewish kids went to that school. And as I go through telling stories, all the BS, I'll tell you how nice the Jewish people were to me. When I was 10 years old and younger, right near my house on Eagle Street, I probably was 8 years old, 9 years old then. They said the Jewish Community Center. And finally, they had artwork and letter work and all that kind of stuff. And finally, the building was about 3 blocks from my place. Finally, there was too many Gentiles going in there. And they said, we can't have anybody here but Jewish, so we're going to stop anybody else but Jewish kids coming in here. And rightfully so. So they had a line waiting to go into the Jewish Community Center. And the guy lived half a block or so from us, not on our street, but the next street, on Spring Street. And he was Jewish. And he was at the door. And he says to everybody, are you Jewish? Are you Jewish? It's like lining up at the Uptown Theater. And guys, no, my name, and then you can't come in, Then I got there, and he says, are you Jewish? And he knew I wasn't. He knew I was Italian. And I said, what else? And he says, he got my head here, and he pushed me inside. And they never bothered me no more. Just learning what else made the difference, But he knew who I was. And I went in there, and I made little purses. They used to get leather, because the Jewish people had a lot of the businesses in Buffalo. And they owned a leather factory, maybe factory. Probably bought the leather from Napa, for all I know. But they made a lot of stuff, belts and things like that in the factory. And they gave the scraps to the Jewish Community Center. And they had artwork, and I should make a pouch like this big to bring home a purse for my mother or something, or somebody else. In the leather, they punched the ladies are there that were helping there all the time, the Jewish ladies. They'd punch it for you with the hole so you can in or out, weave a piece of leather like almost like a shoelace, And they were good to me all the time. And I'll get back to other parts about them. So I had no prejudice. I don't have prejudice against anybody. I don't care what you are. You're my cousin. And it helped me because if you don't have that smart-ass attitude, it helps you in life all the way through because everybody's my equal. I don't look down on people or think I'm better than anybody. When I went buying property all the time, it helped all the time because people, if you act halfway decent to people are ready to make you your cousin. People are wonderful, but if you try and give them the business or this or that, it don't go. And people could smell you. People don't like people that are too successful or this and that. A certain amount of people, jealousy, whatever the case might be. So consequently, that's what it is. So we lived good. And about 16 years old, I worked and saved up a couple $100. And two of my buddies, Don Ferrara and Tommy DeLucio. Don was about 20 years old, and I was 16. And Tommy DeLucio just got out of the Navy, served on the Bonhomme Richard aircraft carrier. And nice guy, two nice guys, real nice guys. And so consequently, we talked about going to California. And we started talking, we're going to go. And I saved money, we saved money. We paid $250 for 1940 GMC half-ton panel. We painted the whole body of the truck blue. We painted the fenders black. We put shells on the sides of the 1940 GMC half-ton panel. And pork and beans, this and that, all canned goods all down the side. We had one mattress we had in the back, small mattress. Two guys sleep in the back. One guy had to sleep in a car on the front seat, across the seat. And we used to flip coins all the time. And we flipped the coin. The odd guy had to sleep in the front. And the other two guys got the nice mattress. And we'd stop all the way. My mother, I was kind of independent when I was 16 years. I hate to say that. But I really was kind of independent, strong-minded, didn't listen, And people from Italy, immigrants, the Mexicans might be the same way. The boys always got away with things. Read my two sisters like little saints. But the boys always, my brother was like a saint too, so he didn't do anything. But I did, but I never stole. I never did anything. I never hurt anybody. I worked in the Shays Buffalo for a while, a big theater in Buffalo. And the guys used to sell the load seats at the booth out in front, and 15 cents extra load seats. And a few of the guys that collected the seats when they sat people used to bring them back to the guy, and they sell them again, and they get the 15 cents without nobody knowing it. So they tried to do me to do it. They didn't like me that way too. And I swear to God, I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't do that. I always had that feeling from being maybe an altar boy or whatever that I didn't have to steal. That stealing, you know what I'm saying. So consequently, I never would do that. And so the two guys and if anybody's got to go to the toilet or anything else, just get up and go. I don't mind, honest to God. Because I'll just BS and BS and BS and you'll get tired.
Well, let's take this opportunity, George, then to, now you and a couple of buddies are in your panel.
Yep.
You're making your way across the United States. And obviously that trip, I think, was successful. You probably had a lot of stories on the way across. But now you at some point you end in Napa. And so, what was your first impressions? What were your thoughts of Napa and the people and how they treated each other and those early experiences in Napa when you arrived here in what you said in?
I had a wonderful feeling when I come into Napa. My friends and I came out of Buffalo, hit Route 66 around St. Louis. We picked corn. We said, we never got corn like this in Buffalo. What beautiful corn. It was all cow corn, but we didn't know the difference. It was all cattle corn. We'd cook it a little longer. We killed jackrabbits on the side of the road maybe a couple of times with a tire iron, and the car had a bullet. The thing had a bullet-type headlight, and we'd hit a couple of them. We'd cut them open, skin them, take off our shoelaces we had there, tie them on the window, the back rear view mirror, stuff like that. And then I'll get into it a little bit. Every town that had girls, skating rinks or dancing, I had dancing in them days. And all the guys from New York danced. So consequently, we stayed there 2 days, 3 days, working in a restaurant, asking if we have food, and this, that, there, and then we'd eat there. We'd cook on the side of the road, wherever was a creek, we'd cook. We used to flip the coin, who's going to wash the dishes, who's going to do this, who's going to cook. It was 3 guys. So we came through L.A., and I loved L.A. I stayed around Eagle Rock, around the beach there and everything else. And then we come up the coast here, and we come up all the town through Fresno, which was hot as hell. We got into Napa. Napa was like paradise. Napa, it was an idyllic little town. It was like 12,000, 13,000 people. We walked around the streets, this, that, there. We were in paradise. We thought that I thought I died and went to heaven. I mean, everybody was so nice. It's like I'm hearing people say, we go to Texas now, everybody's so nice to you. I don't hear that stuff. But everybody was so nice to us. And we worked around town, did a few things here and there, made a little bit of money. And then I wanted to stay here. And then I called my mother, and I said, Mom, I found my paradise. I used to draw California all the time when I was in grade school, say 5th, 6th, 7th grade. And then nuns even say, what are you drawing all the time? And I draw California. I said, I'm going there someday. I swear to God, California was my thing that, like people coming from Italy or other countries. I always dreamt of coming to California. I don't know why. I have no why. So I loved it here, and I told my mother, Mom, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to do that. I'll be a good boy, and I'll get a job, and I'll this and that. And then I'm 16, And she cried a little bit on the phone, and she said, George, please don't do that to me. You're going to a good school in Buffalo. You only got 1 more year. You got to come back. George, don't do that. After that, we'll think about it, So I said to the guys, okay, let's go. I'll go. So I went back, finished high school, and my 2 buddies kept saying, we're going to go back. We're going to go back. One got a job at Bethlehem Steel Plant in Buffalo. One got a girlfriend. You know how that goes. They were that age. So consequently, they kept saying, we'll go. We're going to go. And I said, okay, August 1st, if you don't go, I'm going alone. So they said, we're going to go, yeah. All the BS. Then August 1st was coming, and I saw an ad in the paper from a guy named Sammy Borelli. They owned the laundry. He's about 36 years old, going for his 3rd divorce. And he was going to go to Reno, and get his quickie divorce. He used to get 6 weeks, register there, 6 weeks, got your divorce. Come back, 6 weeks, got divorced. So I saw in the paper, you had to pay part of the gas. And I said, fine, $25 gas. And we were in a Buffalo Athletic Club where he belonged, and I couldn't ever even walk in, or they'd kick me out probably. But he had a little money. And so two girls, and nothing to do with the girls or me, they were 26, 27 years old, waitresses. They said, well, we want to go to California too. And I said, what the hell am I going to do with it? So I told them, I said, they come talk to us. They said they wanted to go to L.A. And so I said to him, okay, Sammy, they're going to come. He said, they can come. But they sit in the back seat. I sit in the front seat with you. I was a little bit, these girls are 26, 27, they're old broads, you know. So consequently, I told him, please, Sammy, pick me up. I'll pick up the girls last. Don't let my mother see that, you know. And so, but he came up, he drove up with these two honeys, both blondes, both Polish. They wanted to go to California, you know. I told my mother, oh, they're friends. We're just going to leave them off someplace here on the other side of town. They're friends of his. And so my family crying a little bit, give me a few bucks more. And so we left to go, and we come to California. We come right straight to Napa, but we had to stop in Chicago. And I slept in a car one night, and then I saw it was going to be 3 nights. So I did sleep in a motel, $10, $12. And he had to be in Chicago for a couple of days, and that's from there I was going to hitchhike to California. I figured I got to ride all the way to Chicago. And then he said, we got to like each other, you know. And he said, George, if you want to stay, the girls had a little money. I'll be here 2 days, and then I'll go to Reno. And then Reno, I'm going to be there a couple of days to register, and I'll go again. By then, we got to like each other, and I helped drive, too, a little bit. And so we went on to Reno, Chicago a couple of days, stayed a couple of nights. I slept in the car one night, and then I used up, I had almost $150, $200. I think I had about $200. And I was using my money up, eating and sleeping and all that stuff. And then in Reno, we registered 2 days, and the girls were scared as hell because they heard about the Mount Donna going to the top. They were scared going all through Wyoming. He drove like a nut. A brand new car, a 1949 Buick Roadmaster convertible, beautiful car. And so they were so scared, they got out of the car at the bus depot in Reno. I'm not laughing at them because it was just kind of comical. It was kind of a joke. They were nice girls, nice girls. Stayed by themselves. We stayed by, no, nothing. And I thought they were old broads, like I said. I thought they were old. They were under 28 years old. So in Reno, we stayed there a couple of days. He got his stuff all done around. And so he was going to go down to L.A., probably 395 route through Nevada. And by then, we were good friends. And he said, I'll leave you off in Napa. I said, I'm going to Napa. So he left me off in Napa. And I went and visited a relative that just had moved from there and everything else. And I went to a gas station. No, I went to Rough Riders. I said, I got to get a job. So I went to Rough Riders Clothing Factory. If everybody remembers that, on Saskell Avenue near 3rd Street. They've torn it down now. And I went in the side door there, and Harry Rothman was there. And at the front door, he was like the manager. And I said, geez, I need a job really bad. This guy just left me off, you know. I need a job real bad. I've got $9 left, and I got no place to stay or nothing else. I need a job really bad. And Harry Rothman was subservient to his brother, N.R. Nate Rothman. But he was a nice man, too, and he had 2 boys in town. I got pretty good friends with them, Marvin and his other brother, and 2 nice boys. And so he said, well, we can't help you now because we're not hiring anybody, but if you come back in a couple of weeks, we'll see you. And his brother, luckily, lived in Hillsboro, and had a limousine, a driver every day, come to work. And it's a Jewish-type work. I mean, those people are workers like that. This man was a millionaire then. He owned a factory, Nate Rothman. And every day he had a driver take him back and forth. he's the first man on a job in the morning. And they used to pile cloth like this, and they had jigsaws like a saw, and they cut the pants, the side, and then it went to into the factory. So he'd come over, thank God, he was like, here's Scott from me. And he comes over, and he tells his brother, and he's always doing this to me. I had another Jewish guy do this to me. Sam Gordon used to do that to me. It might be a trait. And he told, all the time he's talking to his brother, he said, what's the matter with you? He says, the boy says he's got $9. He's got no place to stay. How many people we got working in this place? 700, 800? And he said, you give him a job right now. And his brother, oh, yeah, sure, yeah. So it was a Friday. And he says, good, I'll get him sent right now. So he says, can you come in Monday morning? And he was a nice man, so I'm not saying nothing. Harry Rothman was a great man. They had Rothman's clothing store downtown after that when they got out of the factory. And Nan Rothman, and people might know her, all good people. So I said, I'll be here Monday morning, no problem, I'll be here. $35 a week, 75 cents an hour, $35 a week, carrying bundles from one lady to the next. And I thanked both Rodman. I said, God thanks you for helping me out. So I left there, and I walked about 3 blocks up Sasko Avenue at the corner of Shetler and Sasko. Right now there's an Arco station, and it was a Norwalk station then. I'm almost sure Norwalk. And I went and asked. They had 3 hutches on the back of the building. If you go, you'll see a hill behind the Norwalk. Right now it's an Arco station. There was 3 hutches, old rabbit hutches, not painted, still natural color. And I said, the owner says, could I sleep there for a couple of weeks? I got a job at Rough Riders. I got no place to stay. And okay, if you want. And then I said, I'll clean up in the toilet here if I could. And they say, yeah, okay. So that's fine. So I went up there in the hill, and I picked the best of the 3. Didn't have a door on, and it didn't have windows, but it had wire mesh and no rabbits in there either. No rabbits, no poop or nothing. I mean, they were clean, but they were junky. They were ready to be torn down. They should have been torn down 20. They probably had them during the war, raised rabbits to eat. And I slept on the floor. I had a suitcase about this big, and I slept on the floor for 2 weeks. And then I stayed there, and I used to cry a little once in a while, a couple of tears. And I used to say, Jesus Christ, I don't know how I left my mother and father and my mother and father, and they're good people. Brothers, sisters, everybody, no fighting, always wonderful. But I had a couple of tears once in a while, and I said, I'm going to stay here, and I'm going to do something myself. So I stayed there a couple of weeks, and walked back and forth to Rough Riders. But it wasn't so bad because like the Hispanic community, they're all Italians in that Rough Riders, all sewing, all ladies sew. And the guys pressing pants, mostly 90% Italian pressing pants, and very few ladies of other nationalities, maybe 10%. But all the old Italian ladies knew my story, because I bullshit enough that they probably heard me or something, or somebody told them. And a couple used to give me 25 cents, a couple of 50 cents every other day, stuff like that. A couple said, George, I can bring you your lunch tomorrow. Oh, okay, thank you so much. It was a Tilly, and it was a Minnie Maltabano, and Tilly, who married Leonard Lamonaco, who was he friends with too. And Pete Lamonaco wasn't there yet, but Marco Lamonaco, all Italians worked there. And they were the bosses, the 3 bosses. And they were so nice to me. Dave's place was on the corner of 3rd and Sasko. Right now, it's next to that motorcycle place at 3rd and Sasko. And next door was Dave's place. That was Dave Cavanero and Bob Cavanero, family that ran like a rooming house there. And they lived upstairs, and downstairs was a nice restaurant. And it was $1 a day for lunch. You had the whole lunch. Today, you might have a piece of chicken and potatoes, something else. Tomorrow, spaghetti, something else. And the ladies used to, the first few weeks, give me $1 to go have lunch there. And they took care of me. And 2 or 3 of them invited me to their house. So the first 3 weeks that I had no money, they were saints. They were like saints, okay? Maybe they came off the altar when I was older, boy. But they always took care of me. And I worked there. And then next thing you know, within 3 months, 2 months, 3 months, and our Nate Rothman, he's come up and rubbed my head a little bit or something. And he told his brother, make him a seam presser or something else. So the seam's down here, and then it's piecework. So he'd make like $65 a week. You take off a little ticket and you save it. And I was making $65 a week within pressing the seams. Within another 3, 4 months, I became a finished presser. He would tell them, teach them how to press the pants, how to clothes. So I was a finished presser, which was, I was the youngest one there. All the other guys were 30, 40, 60 years old, 50 years old pressers. It was a good job. And I made as high as like $120 a week. So it was big money then. It was good money. So I went from living in that rabbit hutch. In a few weeks, I moved into the Migliavaca house, if anybody knows, behind ABC Bakery now. That big house, that was a rooming house. It was down by the library. They lifted up and moved it there. They stayed down by the river. They were going to move it to Benicia. And then finally, the hippies were coming in, redoing houses and stuff like that. And they lifted it up and moved it behind there. And I went in there, and it was downtown when I lived there. And it was like $8 a week room, boarding there, no food. And Mary and Wade, I don't know their last name, ran the place for the Migliavacas. And I lived there down by the library. And they'd let me cook a little bit. They knew I didn't have a lot of money. And I'd cook a little bit in her kitchen. When she cooked something big, she'd say, why don't you come down, George? I said, okay, fine. I slept upstairs on the second floor. When you go to the front door, you see a balcony above. I was in that room for quite a while. And we had no heat. The heat was down the register at the bottom of the stairs. So I used to leave my door open when it was cold. But I said, this corny. But I had a broom and I had a string across. So it was about 8 drunken guys always in that rooming house. So if they came in my room, the broom would fall and I'd wake up. So, because I was still 17 years old. And so consequently, I got by like that and lived good. I bought a nice car. I bought a 1948 Oldsmobile convertible before I went in the Navy. And I went in the Navy when I was 18 years old. So I was only maybe a year and a half, 2 years, 17 to them. But I worked all the time. I'd work nights at another cleaners, pressing clothes for them. Gray's Cleaners was one that always was good to me. I worked other cleaners, but Gray's Cleaners were good to me all the time. Gray's were good people. And I pressed clothes at nighttime and Saturday, and it's make $2 an hour from them. And I saved money and saved money and saved money. And when I was 17, 19, about 18 years old, just before my 19th birthday, I joined the Navy to see the world, and what did I see? San Francisco. I went boot camp down to Camp Elliott, down around San Diego. And after boot camp, I'd done good in the scores. I had a pretty good education. I was not good in any subjects, but math I was pretty good. And all through high school, I got to say this because the kids are here. And the best friend I ever had when I was young was Pat Sinella. He was my best friend. He was smart. He was honor roll type. And I was goofy type, And he actually helped put me through school. The day I took the exam to get into St. Joe's, about 500-600 people took the exam. They let 120 in. So luckily I was smart enough to pass that exam or I couldn't get in. And I sat next to Pat Sinella, and he was my best friend my whole life. And I've got 3-4 I'll shout out for if you don't mind. And Pat Sinella, when I went to go in the Navy, I had this 98 Oldsmobile convertible, fire engine red, white top, big white walls. Big shot, going to go back to Buffalo, New York and show off. So I stayed back there about 2 weeks, and Pat Sinella was out of school or anything else in school. He was maybe in between for a couple of weeks. And he came back to California with me. And so he come back to California with me, and I had a house by then on Lalonde Lane, out by Hagen Avenue, and always at parties, not wild parties, just parties. And he met, to drink, we'd drink a beer. I mean, 2, 3 beers. And so consequently, he met Margie Davis in Napa. They lived out by El Centro. And he met Margie Davis, and good family. Bill Davis was his brother. And the district attorney's office here had one of the district attorney people was a Davis. I don't remember her first name, but she was that family. And Pat was just a wonderful person. So he went back east to finish college, and Canisius College he went, and he went and got to be a law degree. And somehow or another, Margie went back there and married him when he was in the service. He was in the service a couple years back there. And then they moved right to Napa, California, which I was so happy because I had my best friend in high school here. So I was so happy with him moving here. And he lived here his whole life with his family. And his mom came and visited and ended up living in Napa too. And so consequently, I had a good time with him and coming here. And my best friend. And so I'll get off of that one there. And I'm in Napa here, and out of Rough Riders, and then the Navy. The Navy, when I go in the Navy, I've got a troop ship coming to San Francisco, and then they're going to the Korean War. And then we're getting ready to go overseas. And our next stop was Kwajalein. I don't know if they know Kwajalein is an island out in the Pacific, I guess. That's where we were headed. And they took 25 guys off at according to our math, at Hunters Point. They took 25 guys off the ship and said, you're going to be here for a while. So I got in Hunters Point, and that's all I stayed. I stayed the whole time I was in the Navy. I mean, I was in the Navy. I was always at Hunters Point as a storekeeper and things like that. So consequently, I'd come to Napa. I'd come to Napa all the time, being in San Francisco. And after the last 8 months, I was in the Navy. I was off every night at 4:35, shower up as fast as I could. And then weekends, I was off from Friday, 4:30, until Monday. And so consequently, I saved $3,000. And that was a big money then, but I worked at Best Service Cleaners, Brown, Swanson, I don't know the other brother-in-law's name, about 2 or 3 blocks from Hunters Point. And I used to work there Wednesday nights, all day Sunday, sometimes Saturday when I was off duty. And I pressed all day long. I pressed 8, 9, 10 hours. I think it's paid me $250. But I saved $3,000 through my Navy time there. And the Natty Pine Drive-In, for all the old timers that probably I'm too old, but the old timers, it was across the street from the high school where the bicycle shop is right now, the corner of Jefferson and George. There was a bicycle shop, and before that was Chick's Burgers. And before that was drive-in restaurant, the Natty Pine. So I bought the Natty Pine Drive-In, only the business. It belonged to Susie Antonini and Larry Antonini. He was a policeman on the Napa City Police Force. And I bought it from Vernon Berg. Vernon Berg was going to go to St. Helena and build Vern's Copper Chimney from the Vukovich family. I think that's the lady's name. That's rented it to him. And he was going to build that, and he did. He moved up there, good friends all my life. And I bought the Natty Pine Drive-In from him. I said, I got to get in business. I got to do something. And I gave my $3,000, no lease or nothing. In them days, you're always like this. It was bad one way. And so I ran the restaurant. I came up every night. I got here about 6:30 from Hunters Point, 63 miles, Unipacera, Silver, Golden Gate Bridge. Always Golden Gate Bridge. I don't know why. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe the other bridge had a little more traffic, maybe. And I'd get here about 6:30 something, and I start fry cooking, making hamburgers and working. And I had about 60 to 80 seats inside, and I had the car hops outside. And I had great car hops, good ladies. Billy Tennant, Billy, the last name will come in a little while. And Frankie Teague, who went to Washington, D.C., and married one of the biggest guys in TV and everything else. I don't know his name, remember his name now. But they did the Lincoln Center, and they did she was in charge of the Lincoln Theater where Lincoln got killed. And her name was Frankie Teague, Tiague, just like the lawyer's name. He could be related to her. I'm going to ask him someday. And they were my car hops outside. They wore the boots and all that stuff. And I worked hard. I get there at 6:30, and I worked till midnight. And then, hard to believe this, but I'd sleep sometimes in a bathtub. They're still in that house. The house is moved. They moved it and made a house over on Menlo. It's still there. I've gone and visited the lady that owns it. They moved the whole house there, the whole Knotty Pine Drive-In. And it had about 60, 70 seats inside. We had dinners and all that kind of stuff. I cooked all the time. Learned to cook from a girl by the name of Johnny. She might have been 30 years old, and her mother worked there. I wish I could find them in later life. I'd have given them something in life, because they helped me to no end. They made the roast beefs in the morning. They made the gravy. They made this, that, there. And then I worked there from 6:30 maybe till midnight. Then I slept and got up about 5:30, 6 o'clock, and took my 36 Ford four-door convertible, old junker car, to San Francisco every day. And weekends we were open from Friday morning until Sunday night. We closed at 12. And I worked probably 18 hours a day on Saturday, all day Sunday. And we were packed. All the guys like Ernie Rhoda, Lou Payne, they all came. My place was busy. And people said, oh, George made money there. That's where he started making his money. But I didn't. I never made no money. I was broke when I got out of there. Because hamburgers were 19 cents. Cokes were 5 and 10 cents. I had a pinball machine, gave me a few nickels and stuff like that. But I never really made money. And I was only there for about a year, maybe not even. And Susie Antonini had a chance to build Chick's Burgers, a new idea where you go to the window and get your hamburger out across the high school. And she said, I'm sorry, George, but I have to let you go. You can't stay, you know. I was only month-to-month lease. And I said, I'm sorry, too. But that was life, and I learned a lesson by it. And I got out of there, and I was flat broke. Basically, I got out of the Navy. The only thing that happened good of all the Knotty Pine Drive-In, except learning curve, is I met my beautiful wife, Jackie, of 67 years now. Yeah. Good person, good family. Lucky, she was like me. Her family was very poor. She lived in a tenement housing across the street from the Cow Palace until she moved to Napa at 18 years old. She had just moved to Napa with her family. Her dad was a Second World War vet. He served apprenticeship as a mechanic and that stuff. And they moved to Napa, luckily for me, at 18 years old. And she came in with a jerky guy by the name of George Biederman. I'll let her hear that. And so he had a Cadillac. I don't know how he got a Cadillac. He must have robbed a bank or something. No, he was a nice guy. But a big guy, so I couldn't say too much or he'd have kicked the hell out of me. He was like 6'2", handsome, looked like Julius DeRosso, and I was this ugly Altamura guy working like a jackass, sweating like a pig. And I used to look out the window, and he used to come in. All people were on chits, all people like him. We used to have like a little book for each one, in like a shoebox, and they'd eat there 3-4 nights a week, and they signed the tag, $2, $3, and they'd come when they got paid every 2 weeks and paid a bill. So every week or so, he'd come in with her to drive in, and they'd drive up. It'd make me mad. They'd come up to the only window in the goddamn kitchen, and I could see him out there and her. And I'd say, George, why don't you bring your girlfriend in sometime? I don't want to say what he said. I'd say it like this. He's had a dirty word to me all the time, you know. And never brought her in. And I'm rambling, so if anybody's got to go, please go. Okay? Right. And if you got to go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom. So consequently, luckily for me, she was a good person. And I said about poor because that's a principle in you. When you're poor like that, you don't better than holier than thou. You don't think you're better than people. She was a good family, a good person. She was a great person. and she was one of the prettiest girls in town, most beautiful girls. She is today, 87 years old. I thank God she's my wife. And it never bothered me all of my married life to say, George, are you sure when I was going to buy some? That's a big thing in a marriage when you have no money and you're starting to try and get going. If a wife would make doubt in you, they're powerful. In other words, she never said, are you sure when I was going to buy some? Because I was wheeling and dealing and wheeling and dealing. So consequently, I met her. He was gone. He went back east to his brother's wedding. He's from New York also. Everybody out here was from someplace else when I was young. So I met her. She was at Vichy Springs Amusement Park. That's at the corner of Monticello Road and Atlas Peak Road, where the houses are. That was an amusement park. There were a lot of dances in Napa in them days. All over was dances. And the Dream Bowl had Stan Kenton. I think Frank Sinatra was there one time. Lionel Hampton. I used to go dancing all the time. Guys from New York all danced. The guys in Napa, no disrespect, guys from Napa, nobody danced. They used to sit on the side and drink beer. So it was free pickings for guys that danced. I danced one time flying home for 20 minutes. I danced with 2 black girls and 2 other girls, and they cut in on each other because I was a jitterbugger from New York, you know. And it made up for my not good looks, you know. So consequently, girls like to dance more than look at a guy. So yeah, that's the way it was. So consequently, she was there with her sister in Henderson, a girl by the name of Henderson. Her dad was a Harbor 4 guy, and linoleum Harbor 4 guy. And they were together sitting at the one end, and I told 2 buddies, luckily I had 2 buddies with me. I said, I got to separate the girl. I'm going to go dance with that girl. I've been dying to be with her a little bit, you know. So I'm back over there, and we danced, and we danced, and we danced, and we danced, and then we met at Terry's Waffle Shop after, and they were open all night. Napa was wild. Napa was the wildest place I've ever been in. All the bars downtown, Cronin's, this side of Fajani's bar, then Cronin's bar, Fajani's bar, this bar, that bar, might as well, this. They had so many names up until you can't remember all the names. Crossetti's bar. And Napa was a wild town. Napa, I thought I died and went to heaven. Honest to God. The girls were all over the place. I don't know how they used to get out of the house at 18, 19, but they'd walk up and down First Street at nighttime. No hanky-pank. I don't mean that way. There are 2 or 3 girls together as girlfriends. But they'd go in these, where Terry's Waffle Shop was on the corner of 3rd in Maine. Next to that was the coffee shop, Hythold family, had the coffee cup. Next to that was Helen's Cafe, open 24 hours. Next to that was H. Schwartz Company, hardware store company. And next to that was the Western Union, and then another bar. H. Schwartz was the boyfriend, had the bar. May Howard, the House of Ill Repute in Napa. There was that house, and the girls within the house, 3 or 4, used to walk up and down Main Street with May, all nice dresses, you know. Nice. We had a couple, 3 houses like that around Napa. And so Napa was just a wild place. Not bad wild. No stealing, no fighting. I never saw guys get in a fight. Maybe I did, but I don't remember anything like that. They had the Gala Club, the Silver Leaf. There was so much to do in Napa when I was young. Before TV. TV kind of changed our whole life completely. And computers now are changing all our kids' life completely. So I was with Jackie then, and then I was just couldn't leave her go. You know, I couldn't wait to see her all the time. And then Biederman called me back after a few weeks and about him coming back to Biederman, and she's told him, you know, see you later. I'm going with George. He'd have killed me. He got me like they'd have squeezed me to death. He'd have killed me right there. So consequently, we went together for quite a while and everything else, and I worked. Then I went to work at Mare Island. When I got out of the Navy, I said I can't go press pants no more for the rest of my life and sweat. It's be like 110 degrees at Rough Riders because there was no air conditioning, no nothing in where a press department were. And I said, I got to do something with my life. You know, I'm not doing it. So I talked to Jackie a little bit what I wanted to do. And I said, I'd like to open up a dry cleaners. I'm going to do a dry cleaners, Jackie. But we had no money. And but we had bought a house before we got married. $800 down. It was $10,800, $55.31 a month payment. So GI Bill or whatever. And the $800 I got by selling 2 houses for the builder. It was Old Sonoma Road, 2756 Old Sonoma Road, across the street from the grocery store as you go out Old Sonoma Road. And so we raised our kids there and stuff like that. And we were lucky to have our own home. It was ready about a month, 2 months after we were married. We lived in a place on Central Avenue, an apartment for a month. But the house was almost all done. And we moved in a nice house, happy as can be. But we were broke. We never had any money. We were poor because we had a kid after 15 months and then another kid after that. I ended up with 3 kids, boy, girl, boy. And I told her, I got to go in business. And I was at Mare Island doing my apprenticeship because when I took the test at Mare Island, I've done real good. And being a veteran, you get 10 points preference. So I probably had 100 on the test with my 90. It wasn't a hard test. And so they said, what do you want to be? I was first in line out of the apprentices, 50, 60, 70 of them. And they said, what do you want to be? What's your apprentice? Most of the guys were talking to go to electronics. Electronics starting to be a big thing. And I said, no, I want to be a carpenter. I want to go in a wood shop, Shop 64. So they said, really? There's one person, I can remember his face. He said, really? I said, yeah, really. Napa was on the wild. Napa was starting to build houses. I said, if I worked there 4 years, I could get my contractor's license. And I could be part of this building thing that's going on in Napa and all over Northern California, all over California. So they said, fine, okay. So I went there and I served my apprenticeship. And then the 4th year of my apprenticeship, we were all so damn broke. We always had like $20, $50 left. And I still worked at nights. I sold all the pilings down the Napa River. Underneath the Maxwell Bridge was Al Erickson, nice man. He used to build bridges all over California. And he had the pilings like telephone poles underneath there, the old bridge, that's where the nice bridge is now. And I went and talked to him about maybe buying some pilings from him. They were about 20 feet long, 24, what the hell they were. And so he liked me a little bit. I liked him. And he said, okay, I'll sell them to you. I said, I haven't got any money, but I promise you I pay you. So he said, sell them to me for $25. And I'd go up and down the Napa River and see who's getting the permits. And I'd sell 4 to this one to put a dock in, 4 to this one, 4 to this one, 4 to the marina, 4 here. I'd sold them all. And the guy by the name of George Hurd, who worked with me in the carpenter shop at Mare Island, he bought the pile driver, and he went in and made his deal after I told him I sold. But I sold them, and I used to make $50 profit. And I did that. I used to press pants again at Gray's Cleaners all the way, even when I had my cleaners finally on Jefferson Street. I hope I'm not boring everybody.
No, you're not boring anybody at all, George.
On Jefferson Street, I had the cleaners, Alton Cleaners, like I told you. And I went there. John Louis owned it. Louis' House of Beauty, if everybody remembers that, on Main Street, Main near Pearl. They're nice people. And I went out to his house. He lived out in Linda Vista. And I said, you're building a building for 3 on Jefferson Street, right across the high school. And I said, I sure want to rent one of those stalls, put a cleaners in, you know. And okay. And he talked to me nice man, Italian guy, nice kind of wife and everything. And I was at his house. And he said, the rent's $130 a month, and you got to pay first, last, and a deposit. You got to give us $390. I said, I don't have $390. I don't have $390. I've got $300 to my name, and I can only give you the first month's rent. Oh, no, we got it. But good thing, the woman again. She was listening in the other room halfway, and she comes out, and she tells her husband, John, yeah. Oh, okay. She said, what's the matter? Yeah. Take the $130, let it go like that. What's the matter with you? And so he said, okay. He was subservient to his wife too. So I gave him $130 there. And when the building was done, we moved into it. I built my own racks out of pipe down by the flea market on the way here to Vallejo. It was old wrecking yard, and I bought pipe. And friends of mine, we screwed the pipe together, and we screwed it into the ceiling, made the racks. I built the counter in my garage, being a great carpenter. I didn't have the money for $109 for Remington Rand. The drawer opened up and added up. So we added everything on a card, on a little chit. And that was our cash register. Adding machines ourselves. We wrote everything. And so I made the drawer even with a cupcake tin and slots for the money. And little by little, but her dad helped me too, and everybody helped me a little bit, bringing the stuff in, helped me with the racks at nighttime. And we had no machinery, we had no money. And I would send the cleaning every day. I'd get off work at Mare Island. I was still at Mare Island the last 8 months. And the last 8 months of there, I was still at Mare Island for a while. I said, I'll stay here until I get done my apprenticeship, and then I get my certificate. Then, about 8 months before, we opened up the cleaners. And I said, Jackie, she had our little boy. I said, you bring in a high pen, big play pen, and bring Frankie. He was like a year old. And you got to stay at the counter during the day. And I get home about 5 o'clock, and I'll do the cleaning of the clothes, put them together. Like if somebody brought in 5 garments, I showed her how to do it. You take off a tag for 6, and you put the 5 a certain place on the clothes. You bundle them up like that, and 6 you put on the ticket so when the clothes come back. And every day I come home from Mare Island, and I get home about 5:15, and I jump in my Volkswagen, an old Volkswagen bus that I bought for $200, and I drive back to Hunters Point, San Francisco. There's Best Service Cleaners. That was about 2 blocks away from Hunters Point, right at 3rd and Fitzgerald, where Planter Peanuts sign was up there in the body. And I'd go there every day, and I'd bring the clothes back that she took in the day before. And we stayed there till 10 o'clock at night, 9, 10 o'clock, and put them in order and put the bag on and we made our own homemade A, B, C, and all that kind of stuff. And her dad helped me sometimes put the stuff away. Good person. And that was it. So we did that until after a few months, about 3 months, she said, George, I'm pregnant. And I said, oh, that's okay, Jackie, because I told you as soon as we get to what I'm making, my apprenticeship done now, I'm quitting. And I was making about $82 a week in my apprenticeship. And I said, you're at $90. We're making $90 a week. So I quit. So I did get done. I quit. I was out my apprenticeship, and I went into cleaners. And I went to cleaners every day. And it helped me out because about 2:30, 3 o'clock, I'd take off for traffic, and I'd go back to San Francisco to still deliver the clothes and get the clothes from the day before. So one day when Jackie's first started, it was only $6 cleaning took in that day. So I still went to San Francisco because always I had to pick up the clothes from the day before. So we ran a good business, and I went to the counter and started working. And as you know, I'm a big bullshitter. So the bottom line is I got to know everybody's name and stuff like that. And before you know it, I was getting 50%. And I was the only cut rate one in Napa. Everybody was $1 for a single garment, $2 for coats, dresses, and I was 54 for skirts, sweaters, and slacks. And 98 cents for suits, coats, and dresses. So I was building a pretty good business, and people came in there like crazy. And before you know it, I was making $150 a week, my half. Before you know it, I was making $200 a week, $300 a week. I made like $500 a week some weeks because I took in $1,000 worth of cleaning. We split 50-50 with the cleaners. And that got me on, that is the beginning of it, all the BS, really. The rest was easy after that. I'll just say 1 or 2 things more about money. L.W. Dodd lived 2 doors away from me on Old Sonoma Road, and he had a heart attack, and he had about $50,000, which was a lot of money. And I used to pull his teeth practically to get $10,000 out of him. But he did loan me $10,000, and I give the deed of trust in his name so he knew he was safe. And I had to give him 20%, and I always gave him 20%. And a lot of people said, that's crazy, but it's not when I tell you what I did. So I'd buy something for $10,000, cut it up into 4 lots, which is one thing I did do, 10-acre parts for $10,000 at that time, and then sold the lots for $5,000 each. You could do it almost easy in the cities, can't do it no more, but you just couldn't sell the lot until you did stake the corners with an engineer. But otherwise, you could bring the paper in on paper and get lot lines, all that kind of stuff done. So he helped me to no end, and I'd pay him $2,000, whether we sold it 2 months, 3 months later. Always was 20%, no matter how quick I paid him back in the year. But I made $8,000 by it. So the 20% was like nothing. In other words, if I got $20,000 out of it, I gave him 2 plus the 10, I'd had 8. So I did that with him for a long time, 20%. We bought the Veterans Memorial for any of the old timers. Remember the Veterans Memorial on Freeway Drive right by the freeway?
Never was finished.
Never was finished. And the city wanted to sell it. The city, part of the deal was they tore it down. It was a big cement edifice, cracking all over the place. It was built bad by somebody. And I bid that out and bought, and I was in there with 3, 4 bidders. And it was just like this all the time. And I with Dodd, he was going to give me the money. And we said we'll go to $50,000, and that's it. You know, we're going to go to more than that. And so everybody was 2 or 3 guys were bidding, and 1 or 2 got left off. There's about 2 bidders left. And my philosophy was, the minute they said their bid, I say $250 more. You got to bid $250 more, $250. And I said, no matter what they said, I said $250 more, $250 more, as fast as they could say. I didn't even think. And then when they got the $50,000, the other guy got the $50,000. I said, I knew I had to do that. I said, $250 more. And the one guy said, P on you, George. I just said P. He said the other word. And he walked by me at the city hall, and it was owned for 32 lots. The city said, you got 32 duplex lots, whoever buys it. And so that 32, we sold it for $112,000 immediately to Sonoma Mortgage Corporation in Santa Rosa. Ray Trioni, I think the guy's name was, and Lyle Axel, and that kind of stuff. So that started me out pretty good. And then I would go with him to Silverado Savings and Loan, which was at Allegra's restaurant, and he'd get me like a check for $80,000 or something, and a cashier's check. And I said, we got to make a paper up, Todd. I might kick the bucket. And Jackie, you go to her, she don't know I made borrowed this money. No, George, you're not going to die. I don't want to do anything. He never would make a paper up, never shook hands, just a prince. He said, you're going to pay me back. And then he probably ended up a millionaire, probably made $1 million, because towards the end, he said, could we be partners in a couple of deals? And then we'll go from there.
Well, wow, George, he sure had a lot of impact on our community over the years, and the property, and obviously the Uptown here is kind of the signature piece right now. But I know we're a little past 1, and I think Liz was going to grab a few maybe questions that came in either online or came in by the audience. But that piece of the old Veterans Memorial, that some of those ended up at Memorial Stadium at the junior college,
I didn't
right?
know that.
Those precast awkward pieces that were the benches
Right.
They came from basalt.
I never knew that.
Were going to be used in that project.
I never knew that.
Then the college district got them and used them for the stadium. But
Good.
they were uncomfortable. And now we have a beautiful new stadium in Memorial Stadium. But so let's, I know it's moving on a little bit past 1, but I think Liz might have a couple of questions for you that were taken from the audience.
Yeah, so right now, if you have a question, raise your hand, and we have Sarah and Shelley who are happy to give you a card and a pencil to fill that out. And I'm going to grab my laptop down here.
Got some coming off?
Yeah, I'll be right back.
On the Uptown, what made you think that the Uptown was worth saving when you purchased the Uptown?
Yeah. I came here all the time, sat in the row up there because I smoked. The first row, I sat there. It was a great community for me. In other words, to come to the Uptown was a wonderful thing, Friday, Saturday night or something there. And usually with a girl, because I never looked at the ceiling. I always looked at the girl. So I never knew it was such a beautiful place. I swear to God, I never knew it was that beautiful. So I had it in me to do it because downtown was kind of dying.
Yes.
I hate to say that. Downtown, before I bought the mall downtown,
Sure.
that was dying about then also.
Right.
But it was dying before that. And so consequently, I said, I got to do this place. It was such a great place for everybody at the time, so I got to do something. And it sounds corny, like you say, well, yeah, you have to make money. But I didn't think it would make money, really. I thought, it'll be a good place. It'll be a good venue. I'll be proud of it. If I restore it, it was a piece of crap when I bought it.
Yeah, I remember.
I mean, the walls, they didn't have drapery all from there all the way down the wall. I made those things that go across like this. I made molds, all these things. My granddaughter made all this beauty above the stage, all these. Yeah. It was just a crappy, well, it was cheap. The guy probably ran out of money in 37. The guy really did. He cut everything down. The walls were all just concrete.
Sure. When
I took off the drapery, it was just junky concrete. Didn't even do a good job. They didn't do it in 37 that good, like nice joints. Yeah. It wasn't like that. It was concrete walls and stuff like that. So it was one of the few. And by then, I had made a lot of money by then. It's just something I wanted to do. In other words, I don't want to be such a good Samaritan for Napa. It doesn't sound like that. But you got to do something for somebody sometime. Like the people that come in to the shows, I sit in my chair, and I like praise like everybody else does. They come by that chair and they thank me, and I thank them, for coming. But it's a good feeling that you did something for somebody. It's always not just me. No. If I got 2 filet mignons here and I could eat them both, I'm going to be like this. But if we share and we love each other like that, and you eat a filet mignon and we laugh together, we eat, we're full, we're fit. Yep. That's the meaning of it, really.
It certainly is. Couldn't agree with you more. Liz, you have one over there.
Go ahead, Liz.
Speaking of doing good, George, is it true that you were Santa Claus in Yountville for many years? That's a question.
I couldn't understand it too good.
Were you Santa Claus in Yountville for a few?
Yeah. 30 years I did it.
30 years, Santa?
I never played Santa Claus, but 30 years I did that one. I had a party for all the kids around Yountville, the farm workers, everybody. Every year, I did it for 30 years, so I got a little tired the last few years, and I told the group up there, I'd like you to do it, continue, and I'll pay for everything, all the toys. My wife and I, Jack, used to go out early. We go to discount stores over by Fairfield here and buy 300 toys and bicycles sometimes, and buy this and buy that. When they had the Cabbage Patch doll, we went out trying to find them all over. We bought a lot of them. And I had a lunch in there, and the Yountville was nice. They gave me the hall. I never had to pay a penny rent. And I always had about 300 kids from all farm laborers, all that kind of stuff, kids from Yountville. And I did it for 30 years. I had a Santa Claus every year, and music, and I brought tigers in, and we tried to do, Jackie and I tried to do a nice party every year for other kids. And we did that. We made lunch, everybody. We made lunch. They got behind and cooked lunch and stuff like that. And a lot of people helped us. A lot of people always helped us. So I did it for 30 years until a few years ago. And then I went to a group there, and I thought maybe they'd want to continue, but everybody's so busy. So I haven't done it for years now, 5, 6, 7 years, whatever it was. But I did do it for 30 years.
All right, Santa. I was going to ask you about nicknames, but we'll have to.
Now we have a new one.
Liz, what do you got?
Just 2 more questions. First, the Napa Valley Opera House was in distress, and you loaned them money. What did you want to do with the Opera House? What's the story?
Well, I was, the Opera House was going to go into foreclosure. A lot of people don't know that. Maybe 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago, maybe before that, about that time, whenever they were building it, Wright Company had a lot of money owed on it, big time. 2 or 3 companies, there were about 8, 9 companies owed on it, and it wasn't quite finished yet. And so they came to see me, and they couldn't go to a bank. No bank would loan them the money to finish and pay off all the debt. And so they come to me, and they said, geez, we got to borrow money. We got to finish the Opera House. We got to pay off Wright, was the name of a contractor. That's just in my head. Maybe it wasn't. And then we got all these other contractors. We got to pay them off. We need the money. We can't finish the Opera House, and it's going to go into foreclosure and that kind of stuff. And it'd be a shame and all that. Yeah, I said, you're right. So I talked to a couple of bankers to see if they would make a loan. And they said, oh, no way. Because they advised me not to either, because they said, if you had to foreclose on it, half the people don't like you in town anyways. That the other half ain't going to like you either. And then because you're taking the Opera House away from them, and it's a great thing, and it's this and that, all that, you know. And I know that. I know how people are. And so consequently, I told them, they said, George, you're going to be nuts. They're going to be, there's no way they could pay you back. I said, well, I got to do it. It's like the Uptown almost. And I said, I got to do it. I'm sorry. So I gave them the $3 million to finish it out. And sure enough, after about 3 years, they're going to pay me back. I won't say who they sent to see me, because usually I would never mention his name. He's got all the money in the world, I think. He's got a lot of money anyways. And he said, George, you got to extend it a few more years, you know, and because they can't pay you. And I said, I want my money. I said, there's never no end. In other words, at least I got to start paying a payment or something. I got $3 million in there. I got all this money in there and everything else. I said, I didn't do it for that. I said, well, I was warned, but I knew he had money. So I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. You'll come up with $1.5 million. I'll go to $1.5 million, and we'll go ahead and carry it for 3 more years. And he said, so I said, then we're not doing it. That's the end of it, okay? Tell him, figure out a way. He's got a great board. A lot of them talk about all the buildings they built, all this and that. Let them come up with the money, because I do want my money. Because I know there's going to be no end. They had a board with some people that had money, you know, and I knew that. And so they might have had to go to a bank and co-sign or something. I don't know what they had to do. But the Opera House was up and running and everything else. And that was the end of that one. I got my money back. They paid my money back, and God bless them. And I hope they do good. It's a jewel. It hasn't come to fruition yet, as far as I'm concerned, but it's a jewel. And I thought it was going to be more for Napa, like the Jarvis Center on Main Street. I owned all that property, and some people come saw me, and I don't say anything, but going to have it for children. Going to have classes for Zurzula or this and this. Going to do this and that, you know. So otherwise, I never would have given up that building and that store in front. I really thought it was going to be like class on Saturday. All your kids, your grandkids dancing, but it didn't happen like that. So otherwise I would have owned it now, and I would do something. I don't know what the hell I do with it.
Yeah, it's another legacy piece in Napa, as the Lisbon Winery, what's the Jarvis Conservancy now. So yeah, you've had always looking out for those pieces of Napa history that are important to us, and hopefully the next phase of the Opera House is going to do just what you thought it was going to do.
I hope so.
Yeah, that's
the
goal. Liz.
And okay, last question. So George, over the last 35 years, we've had snow, floods, fires, earthquakes, and now this virus, the pandemic. What else has happened in terms of catastrophe in this community during this time? Anything we've missed?
Go ahead.
Liz, the question came in about all of the disasters we've dealt with. From my earliest memory is floods, of course, and then we've had fires, and we've had significant earthquakes, and now we're moving out of the pandemic. Is there any other of those either natural or man-made causes that really impacted what you saw, the economy of Napa, impacted by those kind of unexpected events?
Yeah. No, I'll tell you, I don't look at negativity. If the government raises taxes now, big time, I'll adjust. God gives us that brain to move around. In other words, the pandemic, it hurt us for a year and a half now, but we're getting ready to be over it, that. Thank God that they found something that helps us. If they didn't, then we'd be thinking long term what's going to happen. But the bottom line is that we get by. Being Americans, being what we are, the mongrels that all of us are, all the nationalities together, we'll figure out ways to do things no matter what comes. If the flood comes, we say, well, tomorrow's going to go out, the tide's going to go out, or the rain's going to stop. We have to be positive in everything we do. I tell everybody that, kids, people come see me, you got to be positive. No room for negativity. If you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you're looking like you're falling apart, you're perfect. Don't beat up on yourself. Everybody's perfect. Everybody are children of God. And that's the way we are. And so I never have any doubts that we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. I don't want to even think negative. You start getting negativity in your mind and you're killing yourself off. You're losing your arm, your legs, and mentally, because the worst thing a person does is sleep at nighttime and start dreaming about negative things, what happened yesterday. I always sing the song, and that was yesterday, and yesterday's gone. And if you get that in your head, you're fine, because nothing hurts from us. All the stuff we've had the 1918, big deal, this deal. They're all bad wars. Guys went out. My brother went out, come back. He's a cripple kind of, one thing after another. But everything goes away. God takes care of us mentally and makes us whole. If you don't believe in God, believe in yourself or whatever you want. But think always positive. All these disasters we've had, we beat them all. They'll be behind us. But I got to say one thing about me and Napa I forgot to do, tell you the truth. There was a saint in my life, one of the best persons in my life also, was my architect, Bob Keenan. Bob Keenan was so great for me because it comes back to, I'm saying, all the people that helped me. Bob Keenan used to do plans for me for nothing practically when I had no money. He'd draw a plan for what I'm going to do. He'd do this, he'd do this, he'd do that, everything. We go to a restaurant, he'd draw a sketch of what I'm going to be, and he always done great stuff. He was like a saint for me. He died on me a few years back, and I miss him a lot. I miss Pat Sinella. I miss Ray Cirque, although he's still with me, but he's 2 years older than I am. And I used to walk behind him on the way going to St. Joe's, and he'd say, "Get out of here, Altamura." So when I saw him in Napa, he'd come on his own here to be president of Valeriga Markets. He looked at me and said, "Altamura? Cirque? Holy man." So I have Ray Cirque in town, I had Pat Sinella, and I had Bob Keenan, and Peter Riker's another one, engineer-wise, always helped me to do things. All those people, they didn't burn me, see, because if they burn you when you're trying to do a job, you have nothing left to even do the job. So consequently, those guys were brothers in the bond, and I loved them, and I got so many more, but I'll shut up and let it go at that. But those guys were a big influence in my life. Patty Sinella was the greatest, brought me through. He read every book report for me. He come to Napa. He lived with me with his kids. His oldest daughter's my godchild. My oldest son, Frankie, has the Altamura Winery. He's his godchild. And you just have to be cousins, honest to God. I'll leave you with that part about being cousins. Please be cousins.
That's certainly been a theme here of we're all in this together. And George, you have saints you identify in your life and in your family, and we all do that. And know, and in closing here, that you are dearly loved by everyone in this audience, and that 50% plus one. You always tell me you piss off 50 and you're going to keep 50 happy. But so you're ahead in that game of the people who think and admire you, and we certainly appreciate the time you've given us here today to talk to us about your story in Napa and what's kind of shaped your life. We have a little gift for you in parting. from Liz. Going to give you a little plaque that, you know,
This,
recognition
George,
Oh,
yeah, this is from the
sweetheart,
Napa
thank
County
you.
Historical Society, and just such deep appreciation. Thank you for sharing your story. It makes a history of Napa Valley all that much richer. So, thank you so much, George.
Thank you so much, sweetheart.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Please
you.
give George an applause. Yes, please give him a standing. Stand up for George.
Thank you so
What
much.
he has given to this community, we can't even
You can't see them
scratch
out
the
there,
surface.
George, but they're all standing up for you.
Thank you.
Very good.
I love you guys. Yeah.